Hello, I'm Ernesto Juan from ZuDhan Productions, and today we are going to continue talking about traveling to Cuba legally from the United States. In our previous episode, my buddy Orlando Consuegra from Tocororo Travel broke down the 12 categories that entitle any American citizen to travel legally to Cuba from the United States. If you haven't seen the videos, I invite you to follow this link over here for the first 6 categories, or this link over here for the other 6, where Orlando breaks down these 12 categories to travel to Cuba legally from the United States. Last month, the Department of Transportation of the United States granted permission to 8 U.S. airlines to fly directly to Cuba. Havana was not included then because of the competition among these major airlines. But a couple of days ago, the Department of Transportation finally granted permission to fly to Havana. Havana had not been included then, and the only chance to fly to Cuba was either through a charter plane or through a third country like Mexico or Canada. But these new flights won't start until probably later in the year. So if you still want to fly to Cuba probably until November, you will still have to book your flight through a charter flight. What is the difference between traveling to Cuba on a charter plane or on a regular flight? I'm going to drive back to Tocororo Travel and talk to my buddy Orlando Consuegra about the differences between traveling to Cuba on a regular flight or on charter flight.
Hi Ernesto. Yeah, today we're going to talk a little bit about how the charter airlines that travel to Cuba work. Basically, there are many questions that the general public, I'm sure the general public ask themselves. And basically, for example, how do charters that travel to Cuba work? What's their luggage policy? Are they safe? Are they punctual? Do you require medical insurance? Do you have to pay a departure tax? All those questions are in the minds of any person who's intending to travel to Cuba. Even considering traveling to Cuba, I'm sure those questions will be in their mind. So basically, charter flights work a little bit different from regular airlines. And here I want to specifically insist on the fact that with the charter, since they're more like local services, you would be able to, let's say, reserve a seat or book a flight for 3-4 months in advance, and maybe just give a deposit. This deposit is generally non-refundable. So basically, if you book a flight for, let's say, 2 months in time, you will need to leave this deposit. And if you decide to cancel, most likely you won't get that money back. The deposit is usually $50, $100 per person. So with the regular airlines, the commercial airlines will not allow you to do that. Why? Generally, you're buying directly from their website, or even if you're buying through a travel agent, they have a very strict policy on this. And with a few exceptions, I would say, not to be too general, you would not be able to give a deposit to get a ticket. You would have to pay the ticket in full the moment you buy it. So this is one advantage that locally we have when we can count on charter airlines. Also, for example, the advantage is that you give this deposit and roughly 30 days, 21 days in advance, you will pay the balance without any implication of late fee or overcharge of any type. That's all. You pay the $50 deposit and then you pay the balance when the time comes, when the balance is due. If you require, if you need to cancel the trip, it's very, very likely that you won't get any money back or a very small portion of what you paid. But again, this is only like 21 days before departure. So they have already reserved the seat for you. You've paid it in full. Most likely, you will only get a small amount or nothing at all. Luggage policy. This is something that for Cubans is very important. When Cubans go to Cuba, they generally go to see their family. So they carry a lot of luggage. They bring all sorts of merchandises, food, etc. to their families in Cuba. However, the American traveler would not travel that heavy because they actually go on a people-to-people trip, because remember, you cannot go as a tourist. So basically, you're carrying light luggage. So the general policy, even though it may change from charter to charter, but generally you are allowed, or you have included, let's put it that way, you have paid, when you pay your ticket, you have paid for 44 pounds of luggage cumulative. That means that your hand luggage and your main luggage will be weighted, and you are allowed, you have free of charge, or you have paid for it already, 44 pounds. Anything on top of that, if you are taking, let's say, 50 pounds, you will most likely pay 60 pounds at $1 or $2 the pound. Depends on the charter, depends on the time of the year, high season, low season. So all those elements will influence the fact that you pay $1 or $2 per pound. If you're taking any other, let's say a box, because you're taking some sort of apparatus to Cuba, then you will probably pay between $3 and $4 per pound for that box, because it is considered irregular luggage. If you're going to take a TV to Cuba because you're bringing it to your family or friends or whatever, that has a separate payment. You may be paying $150 for the TV, $200, depending on the size. All right, 32 inches, 52, 72. You will pay different prices for different sizes of TV. Now, charters, safety-wise, they are as safe as any other plane. Remember, charters are not a different sort of plane. It is the same plane that you use to fly with American Airlines, with Sun Country, with Swiftair. The same planes, they're just chartered by a charter company, but it is the same plane. So at the end of the day, they are subject to inspection, federal regulations, etc. So they're as safe as any other plane or airline. At the moment, from the United States to Cuba, charters cover different routes. Let's say the most common or well-known ones are Miami, Havana, Miami, Santa Clara, Miami, Holguin, and back. Yeah, but there are other origin cities like Orlando, Tampa, New York, and California, from which you can also travel to Cuba. So if you require any more advice regarding your closest airport, you can always call us, Tocororo Travel, and you can always contact us to find out which is the most convenient airport for you. Of course, you can always find our details down below in the text that you're going to have under this video. There are two more points I would like to highlight regarding the charter airlines. And one of them is that within the price you pay for your ticket, you have a medical insurance already included in that price that covers you for $25,000. If you're in Cuba, and God forbid, you do have a medical emergency, you have a coverage of $25,000 already included in your flight ticket. There, I'm sure if that happens, there will be people to assist you and to tell you where to go, what to do with that. And the other information that is important is that the prices at the, for example, right now you may be paying anything between $299 to $700, depending on the airport. I mean, the origin where you're going, your airport, what destination you're going in Cuba, what time of the year you're planning on flying. That will impact the price. Miami, Havana, you could take a ticket now for about $319. That's what we have in Tocororo Travel for the month of June. Probably for July, it will increase a little bit, like $359, something like that. Those are the prices that we actually have at the moment. Expected to go down as many other airlines will be probably joining the routes to Cuba, like American Airlines, Silver Airlines. They have announced that they already received their permission to travel to Cuba, and obviously they have published already some of their prices. But with us, the prices are better at the moment. You can always, contact us, and we'll be more than happy to accommodate you with the date of travel that you intend to do. One last point, 25 CUC, that is the local currency in Cuba. In Cuba, you have two currencies. I'm going to go deeper into this in another chapter of this blog. But for you to have an idea, you have two currencies in Cuba, the Cuban peso and the Cuban convertible peso. So before, when you were leaving Cuba, when you were departing from Cuba, you would pay 25 CUCs at the airport for airport tax. Yeah. At the moment, that money is either included in your flight ticket, or you pay it at the airport here in Miami or in New York, or whichever your point of embark is. Well, I think I've pretty much covered every point that I think is important for you to have an idea, a very brief idea, let's say, on how the charters that travel to Cuba work. So any other information you may require, any question you may want to ask us, please feel free to contact me directly on my email, Orlando at tocororotravel.com. That is ORLANDO at TOCORORO travel.com. You can also find that information down below in the text under this video. Thank you very much for watching.
Oof, that was a lot of information. Remember that you're not allowed to travel to Cuba. If you are an American citizen, you're not allowed to travel to Cuba as a tourist. You can only do so under 12 categories that entitle you to travel to Cuba legally. If you haven't seen these videos, if you want to know more about these 12 categories, I invite you again to watch the link, follow the link here on this to watch the first 6 categories, or this link over here to watch the other 6 categories. So if you want to book your flight to Cuba, I recommend you do so through Tocororo Travel, which is a travel agent here in Miami, and they specialize in trips to Cuba. Their information is down below on the description of the video. And I also invite you to subscribe to our channel. If you like our videos, if you want to know more about how you can arrange your trip to Cuba, I invite you to just subscribe to our channel. And because in every episode, we are going to break down how you can travel to Cuba legally. We are going to break down on the things you should bring, the things you should not bring. We are going to break down also where you can stay, if you can stay in a hotel or in a casa particular, which is a private house. We can also break down what kind of currency operates in Cuba, if you can bring credit cards, if you only have to bring cash. And we're also going to break down the things you can bring from Cuba to the United States. Just follow us, subscribe to our channel down below, and we will invite you to follow our videos and learn more on how you can travel to Cuba legally from the United States. See you in a bit.